The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the Serengeti plains. As the golden light faded, a lone figure stood silhouetted against the darkening sky. This was John Mbeki, a seasoned wildlife ranger with decades of experience protecting Africa's most iconic creatures. His weathered face bore the marks of countless days spent under the harsh sun, but his eyes still sparkled with an unwavering passion for the animals he guarded. John's gaze swept across the savannah, alert for any signs of distress or danger. The air was thick with the scent of dry grass and distant acacia blossoms. Suddenly, a faint sound caught his attention. A weak, plaintive cry carried on the evening breeze. Without hesitation, he set off to investigate, his boots crunching softly on the parched earth. As he pushed through a tangle of thorny bushes, John's heart quickened. There, lying motionless in a small clearing, was a lion cub. Its golden fur was matted with dirt and blood, and its tiny ribcage heaved with labored breaths. John approached cautiously, speaking in low, soothing tones. "Easy there, little one," he murmured. "I'm here to help." The cub's eyes, clouded with pain and fear, met John's. At that moment, a connection formed between man and beast, a silent understanding that transcended species. With infinite gentleness, John scooped the fragile creature into his arms. It weighed no more than a house cat, its body hot with fever. Cradling his precious cargo, John began the long trek back to the ranger station. Every step was taken with care, mindful of the delicate life he carried. The cub's shallow breathing was a constant reminder of the urgency of his mission. As the first stars appeared in the deepening twilight, John finally reached the outpost. Inside, he laid the cub on a soft blanket and quickly set about preparing a makeshift formula. With a dropper, he coaxed tiny amounts of the warm liquid into the cub's mouth. First it resisted weakly, but hunger soon overcame fear. John worked through the night, cleaning wounds, monitoring vital signs, and offering comfort to the frightened animal. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the cub stirred. Its eyes, clear now, fixed on John with a mix of curiosity and tentative trust. When offered a small piece of meat, it sniffed cautiously before taking a hesitant bite. John's heart soared. "That's it, little fighter," he whispered. "You're going to make it." Over the following days, the cub's strength grew. John named her Zuri, meaning beautiful in Swahili. She took her first wobbly steps across the floor of the ranger station, her tail held high with newfound confidence. John found himself captivated by her resilience and playful spirit. Each milestone, the first successful pounce on a toy, the first playful growl, filled him with a fierce pride. As weeks turned to months, Zuri blossomed into a healthy young lioness. John knew that the time was approaching when she would need to return to the wild. He began taking her on short excursions into the surrounding grasslands, teaching her to stalk and hunt. Zuri proved to be an eager student, her instincts sharpening with each outing. Their bond deepened with each passing day. In the cool mornings, they would sit together on a rocky outcrop, watching the sun rise over the endless plains. Zuri would rest her head on John's lap, purring contentedly as he stroked her growing mane. In these quiet moments, John marveled at the twist of fate that had brought this magnificent creature into his life. But John was acutely aware that Zuri's true home lay beyond the confines of the ranger station. As much as it pained him, he knew he had to prepare her for a life of freedom. He began to limit their interactions, encouraging Zuri to spend more time exploring on her own. She ranged further and further from the outpost, sometimes disappearing for days at a time before returning to John's welcoming embrace. The day of Zuri's final release arrived with a bittersweet inevitability. John led her to the edge of the reserve, his heart heavy with impending loss. Zuri seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, pressing close to John's side as they walked. At the boundary, John knelt beside her, looking into those familiar amber eyes one last time. "Go on, Zuri," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "This is your world now. Be free, be strong, and remember that you are loved." Zuri hesitated, looking back at the man who had saved her life. Then, with a final nuzzle against John's hand, she bounded into the tall grass. John watched until her tawny form disappeared from view, feeling as though a piece of his heart had gone with her. In the years that followed, John continued his work as a ranger, but thoughts of Zuri were never far from his mind. He would scan the horizon during his patrols, hoping for a glimpse of a familiar silhouette. Sometimes on quiet nights, he imagined he could hear her roar echoing across the savannah, a reminder of the unbreakable bond they shared. 5 years after Zuri's release, John received an unexpected assignment. A research team was tracking a pride of lions in a remote corner of the reserve, and they needed an experienced ranger to assist. As John approached the study area, his pulse quickened with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The team pointed out the pride lounging in the shade of an acacia tree. John raised his binoculars, scanning the group. His breath caught in his throat as he focused on one particular lioness. She was magnificent, powerful, and regal, with a distinctive scar on her shoulder that he would recognize anywhere. "Zuri," he whispered, hardly daring to believe it. As if hearing her name across the distance, the lioness lifted her head. Her gaze locked onto John, and for a heart-stopping moment, the years fell away. Then, to the astonishment of the research team, she rose and began to approach. John stood motionless as Zuri drew near. She circled him slowly, her nose twitching as she took in his scent. Then, with a low rumble deep in her chest, she pressed her massive head against his leg. John's hand trembled as he reached out to touch her familiar fur. "You remembered," he murmured, tears blurring his vision. For a precious few minutes, man and lion stood reunited under the vast African sky. John knew that this moment was fleeting. Zuri belonged to the wild now, to her pride and to the endless plains. But as she turned to rejoin her family, casting one last look over her shoulder, John's heart swelled with a profound sense of completion. He had given Zuri a second chance at life, and in return, she had taught him the true meaning of love, a love that transcended species and time, as vast and enduring as the Serengeti itself. As John watched her disappear into the golden grass, he knew that their connection would remain unbroken, a testament to the extraordinary bonds that can form between humans and the wild creatures we strive to protect.